The truth is, most people don't forgive themselves because they think it was their responsibility. Like they're mad at themselves because they believe, why were they in the situation? How could they let themselves be dragged along for so long? How could they let themselves be made felt that way? How could they let anyone else take that power from them? And the truth is that you're not wrong for wanting something good. Like, you're not wrong for wanting to be loved. You're not wrong for wanting to love. You're not wrong for envisioning something in the future. You're not wrong for just wanting the most basic thing that we all deserve, which is to be loved or to be cared for. And we become mad at ourselves because we see the red flags, we see the stumbling blocks, we see those things when we are away from those things. And even then, even though we see all those things, we still want them to be the person we envisioned. The reality is that they are not who we imagine them to be. They are who they're showing us they are. And even though we want them to fit into those things, it doesn't mean that this is who they actually are. And the reality for a lot of people is that forgiving ourselves is a mountain. Like, there's so many factors to this. It's not just like emotional relationships or stuff like that. Because this is, again, that's like the easiest one. I always say it's low bearing fruit. It's easy to pick at relationships because that's something that so many people struggle with. But even with like things that we've done in our lives, like things that errors that we've made, mistakes that we make, there's sometimes that we dwell so much in what we've done that we never leave it alone. Like, we go back to the mistake that we've made, and we try to repiece things, or we try to feel the shame of what it was like. And I need you to understand that you're not there anymore. That you deserve and are allowed to move and grow from something, and you should learn from it. I'm not saying disregard it and not care for it. I'm saying learn and realize that that thing happened. You might have made a mistake, but you're not your shame. You're not a byproduct of where you were. This is why sometimes we find it so much harder to forgive ourselves. Like, it's easy for us to look at other people and understand their mistakes and their grief, and look at them as people, and say, it's okay, you're forgiven, I forgive you, or even understand that they deserve forgiveness. But when it comes to us, when it's us personally, we really struggle to forgive ourselves. And there's so many folds to that. We're going to dive deeper into that. But the reality is that for a lot of us, we understand that we should do better. Like, we know that we're capable of being better. We're capable of more. So what happens is that when we make these mistakes, when we fall short, when we fail, we're harder on ourselves than we would be on anyone else. And I'm not saying to disregard that, to not care about you being better, to not care about you progressing, about you doing the things you need to do. I'm not saying don't do those things, because they're important, they're true, they're good. But I am saying is that you deserve to give yourself the same grace that you'd give anyone else. You deserve to understand that you are human, and that comes with a lot of flaw. It comes with a lot of failure. And it's okay to make mistakes. What's not okay is to repeat them and go back and do it over. Because at that point, it's not a mistake, it's a decision, right? You're choosing to make the same thing over and over and over again, and you need to grow from those things. But it's easier for us to forgive other people because we expect them to mess up. Like, we expect people to be human. We expect them to do things and to have flaws, and we sympathize and empathize with them. We look at them and we say, wow, I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's okay to not hold this over yourself. But when it comes to us, we are our hardest critic. So I don't know where you are in your life, and if this necessarily relates to the current season you're in, or it relates to a season you were in, or a season you will be in. I do think that we all struggle with this throughout our lives, because it's hard for us to understand that we deserve to be forgiven. And if you've never given yourself permission, I just hope this is the day, as we dive into this mountain for a lot of us, that you give yourself permission to be free from the things that you've done, from the shame of the past, from the lies of the past, from the things that have been held over you, or being held over you, that you are not those things. And if you've made 1,000 mistakes, this is day one of those 1,000 mistakes being in your past. Because again, I'm not saying that they weren't bad, that they didn't have value, they didn't have worth, didn't have weight, that they were things that were mistakes, but that's the things that they were, not they are. And maybe there's trickle effect of those things, but you're not in the center of it, you're in the outside. You deserve to forgive yourself. because something happens, right? When we don't learn to let things go, when we don't learn to allow this to leave, well, from the scientific component, we actually create more stress. There's a book called, and I believe I've quoted it before, the body keeps the score. That your body physically, actually, like physical, like literally, chemically in your body and physical implements in your body take on the weight of the things that you're holding over yourself. So, like example, your body produces the stressor hormone, cortisol. It actually goes into your body in ways that it affects your body, hurts you. It actually produces fat. Like that's literally the thing that it does. When you are aggravated and create this pain, your body doesn't know how to react. It becomes deregulated. So you have this physical outcome of holding on to shame. You have this physical outcome of holding on to pain, of holding on to the things that you haven't forgiven yourself for. And it's going to keep replaying and replaying. Why? Because our brains are not very good at creating healthy memories. All they do is repeat a memory of a memory. So we are looking at the worst possible outcome of this situation. Might not even be the situation itself. It's a byproduct of what our brain created. And you're living in something that you deserve freedom from. And we're going to talk about that, right? A little deeper, how to actually gain freedom from these things and to be honest, about spoiler alert, most of this, if not all of this, comes from what you repeat and what you believe, what you're willing to say about yourself, opposed to what you have been told to believe about yourself. So there's this weight that we hold in our chest, in our shoulders, and in our jaws. This is why when people say like, let your shoulders down, unclench your jaw, relax, take a deep breath, be patient, be present. All these things is that they allow us to do it because it's, again, a physical component of what we're feeling. But there's this weight of unhealed guilt and shame. Like there's something that hovers over us and that we carry into every relationship, every career, every path that we go into, everything that we do on our own. We carry the weight of that shame. We carry the weight of that guilt. And again, there is a healthy component to this of understanding where you failed, where you messed up, and understanding that you can heal and grow from that. But the healthiest thing that you'll ever do is define that you're not that. That you don't need to continue to carry things into the next seasons of your life that weren't meant to be there. There's this like analogy almost where a man is leaving and he's leaving his house, and every time he leaves, he comes back, and he leaves, he comes back, and he leaves. But every time he's taking something more into his travel case, his suitcase. It's not a rolling bag because it's making it a lot easier. It's just a carry-on. And he's going, and he's coming back, and every time it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. Why? Because he keeps going back to a place where he was not supposed to be in, a place where he was already freed from. For a lot of us, we do that. We go back to the shame. We go back to the moment. We go back to the memory. We go back to the person. And again, these aren't even valid memories. Like they're things of our brain's construction, either to protect us or to keep us away. Our brains aren't very good at remembering things. So it just makes it worse. And every time we go back to this thing, we carry more of that thing with us into this next place. We don't leave the things that were meant to stay there. We bring them into this next stage. So the shame, the guilt, the heaviness of this thing, it never leaves you because you're continuing to bring it into new places. And you refuse to unpack that thing and let it go. And this is, I tell this story often because there's a show called Hoarders. And if you've never seen the show Hoarders, it's a disorder, right? This hoarding is a emotional disorder ultimately, but also mental, but an emotional disorder because people tend to create attachment to certain things, right? They create attachment to even the smallest thing in the world, but they don't know where they're going to see it again, or they don't know how, they don't know where they got it from, but it has a memory or has something attached to it. So they produce this attachment that so much so that everything in their house becomes disgusting and just overflowing and just essentially filled with garbage. And if you've ever seen the show Hoarders, it's like, how do people live like that? Like, how do they live with so many things that are causing so much mess and so much dirt and so much stink, and they literally can't live in their own home effectively, even use the toilet effectively, because there's so much they're packing. I believe that a lot of people are emotional hoarders. Like, we are shameful hoarders. We hold on to things and to memories because they're attached to certain people or to certain moments, and we're afraid that if we let this thing go, that it's going to let go of that particular person or moment or memory or going to make us not be accountable for the things that we've done. I believe that a lot of people are struggling with this because they become so accustomed to it that they're unaware that they're hoarding. And they're hoarding their emotions, they're hoarding their shame, they're hoarding memories in hopes that they never have to let go of that particular season. They never have to let go of that particular person, that particular job, that particular feeling that they had. For a lot of people, we struggle to let go of the weight of shame and the weight of guilt because we keep it with us. We make home where all this stuff is. And it becomes this huge part of our identity. You're not the worst thing that you've ever done, but you are responsible for becoming who you become after it. Like, you are not the things that you lived in your past. You're not what you've been said about. You're not your biggest flaws and mistakes. Everyone has a chance. Everyone has redemption. This is why I love being Christian. I love the gospel, because every person has a moment to be redeemed. You have a moment right now, even, to accept who you fully are and not who you've been told you have to be. To accept the fullness of the gift that you've been given, the ability, the talent, the reality of letting yourself be who you are and not being a hoarder of your emotions, not hoarding how you're feeling, not dwelling and living in a place that you already rescued from. Too many people live so deeply in their shame that they never know who they fully are. They live their whole lives in the things that they've done and the mistakes that they've been in and the things that aren't even their identity, but they've been imprinted with this so deeply that this is who they really believe. You really believe that you are your shame. Like, you really believe that you're your brokenness. You really believe that you aren't worthy. And this is the biggest lie that would ever happen, because let's just pretend that you believe that there's a devil. And if there is a devil, his one goal is to make you believe that you're not full. Because if you're broken, you're easy to manipulate. This is why people, when they're psychotic, the people that they go after typically are the broken people. Because they don't fully know who they are. They've identified themselves so deeply and so rooted with their wounds that their wounds are all they've identified their whole life with. It's the only thing that they gravitate around. But you're not those things. You're not your shame. You're not your brokenness. You are who you are choosing to be today. And like, when I mean today, I mean like right now, as you're listening to this podcast, as you're watching this video, whatever it is, this very moment, you are free of all that shame. The question is, do you believe it and accept it? Or are you going to vindicate the same excuses you've been living with because you don't want to let it go? That show hoarders, they did that often. They would begin to categorize certain things and say, well, no, this was given to me on this day, or they no longer make this or this and that. They'll keep making excuses as to why they want to keep holding on to their pain. Why are you making excuses for the pains, the shame, and the past that you need to let go of? You're not there anymore. And if this is something that we haven't even struggled with yet, at some point we'll look back and say, man, I'm in something, or went into something that made me feel like I was inadequate. We have to learn to let go of these things. Regret is just the past trying to drag you back into that version of you. You're no longer that person. That person no longer exists. So we want to talk about these practical things. Just a few things that maybe to actually, because one of my biggest goals is to do this with this podcast, is to look for practical things that are science-backed that can help us really just let go of this regret. So admit what happened without dressing it up. Now, this might be hard for some people because, again, even though we're dwelling in it and we're living in it, we don't want to identify what it fully is. So whatever that shame is, whatever that guilt is, whatever the mistake you did, admit it. Like, straight up, what was it? What did I do? And what happened? And allow yourself to see that thing, to say, this is where I messed up. This is where I was flawed. This is where I failed. Or this is what this thing was. Name what it cost you emotionally. Now, this is a big one, because I want you to look at what that's costing you now. For some people, it's costing them their future marriages. Like, I know people personally. Again, these conversations are not new. These are things that people have spoken to me about. And I know people that are so wounded and so stuck in their hurt and their shame and their past that they're ruining anything possible for their future. They're burning bridges with people that they need in the future. They're burning their future marriages, their future careers, their future friends. They're burning those things because they're still stuck in a person that they aren't, in a place that they weren't meant to be. So name what it's costing you emotionally. Is it costing you a career? Is it costing you friendships? Is it costing you your personal relationship with yourself. Do you love you less because of this thing? Identify the version of you who made that choice, because you're not that person anymore. You wouldn't feel shameful if you were still them. Like, you wouldn't feel remorse for doing the thing you did if you were still that person. So identify why. Why were you there? What were you struggling with? Because sometimes how this helps us is looking at that person and saying, well, they were that way because they were battling this, battling that. And when you're able to identify yourself as that person and not just as you, you actually will give yourself more grace. That same first point that we talked about. It's easier for us to forgive people than it is for us to forgive ourselves. So when we look at that person that we were and we say, well, this is what they were going through. Like, we show empathy for them. And we say, we understand why you were there. This is the first part to healing yourself, to forgiving yourself, is to know that you are a person. And that person was going through things. And they were in a season where they were being hurt, or they were hurting. So they did the things they did, or they responded the way they responded, or they were feeling the way they were feeling because of other exterior things. And you're able to forgive them because it's not you. You're not them anymore. You're here. Replace self-punishment with accountability. Like I said, it's not that this thing goes away and that you don't care about it anymore, but you become accountable. I did these things. I messed up. I was hurt. I failed. But I'm not that person anymore. Redirect your energy into actions that prove you've changed. This is a big one because we're afraid to do certain things. Afraid to move certain ways, afraid to speak to certain people, afraid to dive into certain things because we still think we're that person. So when we start doing things that are new, we start redirecting how we change, how we respond, how we live, it identifies with us, our current us, a lot more than with our previous us. We begin to say, well, no, this is who I am. So being able to do these things, which for the most part should be simple and practical, allow us to detach from that particular place. Now, I want to be clear, shame is a heavy one because shame, it's for a lot of us, is rooted in the fact that we know that we're better than that we know that we shouldn't have made that mistake, that we know that we shouldn't have failed, but you didn't fail because you wanted to. Like, you didn't choose to make those mistakes. Like, you didn't have the option to say, oh, I'm going to want to make this huge mess right now. No, it's not something that you did intentionally. And even if it was intentional in that moment, is it intentional for the person you are now? Probably not. Shame has a lot of weight behind it because of that, because it's rooted and based in us, on what we're capable of doing, on who we know, who we are, what we offer. It's based on the reality of you. So allowing yourself this space to rectify these things allows you to begin to trust yourself. Rebuilding trust with yourself is the hardest thing we'll do. The real betrayal isn't what someone did to you. It's all the time that you didn't stand up for yourself. You rebuild trust with yourself in the same way that you rebuild with anyone else. Consistency. Make small promises and be consistent in promising them. We've spoken about this before because this is such a strong-rooted thing that a lot of us lose the belief that we are capable of doing things because we've lost the trust that we had in ourselves. That we do not take the next step or change or make something new because even we doubt us. We made so many promises to ourselves and we weren't consistent with them that nothing's ever changed. So every time you believe that you're going to do something different, or you say that you're going to do something different, internally, deep down inside, you don't believe it because nothing changes because you're doing the same thing today that you were doing yesterday. And one of the hardest things that we will ever do in our lives is be consistent with ourselves. And this isn't everything, and these are things I'm working on myself, right? The stages that I'm trying to grow in my life where I need to learn to be more consistent. And maybe I keep failing, but I know that the difference there is that even when I fail, if I'm consistent, even in my failing, then I'm going to be consistent in my success. That something is going to change because it has to change. Because I'm showing up in a way consistently that even if it's small, it's powerful. So how do you learn from your past without reliving it? Because again, when we talk about wounds and shame and all these hurts, what happens sometimes is that we relive certain things. We recycle through certain processes. We play back moments and say, I was so dumb on that day, not realizing that those things are no longer holding anything over you. For a lot of us, we make a prison out of this. Like we create a cell instead of creating a border, right, that was supposed to protect us. We create a boundary and then we draw that around ourselves. We make this barrier rather, and we make it around ourselves and don't allow anything else in. So what happens is that now you made that thing, or you lived in that shame, or something was said or done to you, but now you didn't just go through it. Now you live with it. Like your whole life gravitates around that particular thing, around that particular wound, around that particular hurt. And well, the worst thing that we could ever do, because this is what happens again, when we go into our traumas, our shames, our failings, and we make a prison cell out of it, what happens is that we give it the keys. We lock ourselves up and say, well, here, dictate everything in my life. Dictate how I'm going to move, when I'm going to eat, how I'm going to change, when do I sleep, when am I depressed, when am I happy. You give so much authority to what was done to you when you create a prison cell for yourself. A border, a boundary rather, is good. That just says that you can't disrespect me here. You can't come against this. You can't push over here. I'm going to protect myself from here. But you're not enclosed into anything. You've just stopped certain things from crossing over. When we live in this, we don't give ourselves enough grace to heal. That same thing we spoke about earlier. You don't give yourself enough space and grace to say that it was okay, that you are healing now, that you're growing now, that you're not in that stage, that you're not what was done to you, that you're not what was said to you, that you're not what you did, that you're not the mistakes of your past. And I want to just be practical with that. Because again, that same breath, it's easy for us to forgive other people, but not ourselves. What makes you think that you're perfect? Like, let's be real. This is one of the most freeing lines you will ever hear. You are not perfect. You were not made to be perfect. You're not in this world as perfection. That means that your flaws and your mistakes and your shortcomings are a byproduct of you being human, not of you being perfect. Because if you were perfect, then you should make no mistakes. But you're not perfect. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up. You're going to do all of these things that people might even talk about you and judge you for. But the crazy thing is that those same people judging and talking about you have their own flaws and their own mistakes. They will throw the biggest stones because they're trying to hide behind them. There is no single person in this world that is perfect. And if you live in a world thinking that you have to do everything perfectly and have every step figured out and there is no shame and no fear, then you're not living in a real world. You're living in a world that you are either you're perfect and you're the king of it all and you're God in your own world, or you're living in this world where you're flawed and you're human, but you're loved and redeemed and made good because of who God is, not because of you. And that leaves you with so much power because now it's not your responsibility to deal with that. Yes, it's your responsibility to change. It's your responsibility to love yourself, to grow. But it's not your responsibility to be perfect. You were not made to be perfect. You're incapable of perfection. And no matter how much shame you hold over yourself, you will never make yourself perfect. So there's freeing nature in that. There's a freeing reality in knowing that we are not perfect, and this mountain of healing, of forgiving yourself and moving forward, this reality that you are capable of this just because it's your nature, not because it's your perfection. There's so much tranquility in it. So our last point here is this power of grace, of self-healing. It's this truth that you are already given grace, that you're already given this grace, freely given, unearned, unwarranted, and merited. It's yours already. But how you receive it is important. Like how you allow this to actually happen is important. About myself. Why am I feeling that way? Why am I believing that? Why am I acting that way? What about me in that moment is that a character for me? Because the truth is that we need to learn to identify the places that we don't love ourselves enough so we can learn to love ourselves in them. Like the places where we don't offer ourselves this mercy, this grace, this freedom, so that we can fully just come back to it. We need to learn to give ourselves the same grace we'll give someone else. Not because we're perfect, not because we have it all together, but because we deserve it. And there's not a single human in this earth that does not. Even the worst of the worst people, if you are really changing and making something better and trying to make yourself better, there is redemption for everybody. Now, I'm not saying that there's certain things that we just forget about and throw them under the rug. I'm saying that there's certain things you will have to grow through, right? And then that's all on the severity of the thing itself, because it's very different to say something like the shame that we deal with in a regular. Here, be vulnerable. Last couple of minutes here we have. If you listen this far, that means you listen because you're intentful here. And I'll just be quick with you. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being present. But a shame that I dealt with, and dealing with is that I'm a minister. I travel to speak and I preach around the country, and I had a son, and I'm not married. And for me, that was a weight that held very, very heavy on my heart for some time, because I'm like, man, I made a mistake. Like, my kid is not a mistake. My kid is beautiful, but I'm talking about the action itself. And I put myself in a situation that I should not be in. I put myself in a place that I shouldn't have been part of. And I was praying with that, and I was like, it's really heavy on my heart. And the Lord reveals to me this just reality where the reason I feel shame is because I feel remorse, is because I know that I should have been better and done better and grew more. And I have an image, and I'm a person that's seen, and I'm talking about all these things, and I'm doing all these things, and I am messing up. And the Lord just reminded me in that moment of my humanity. And I know I don't really talk about too much faith here. We kind of just touch on certain things, but maybe this is your belief, maybe it's not. And if it's not, there's still philosophy behind this. So just bear with me this last minute for this point. He reminded me of the fact that I'm a human. And if I were to be perfect, I would be him. And there was so much freedom in that moment to know that my shame was not enough to overcome God's mercy. My shame wasn't enough to derail God's plan. That my shame was not enough to make me less loved by God. There's something powerful that happens when we realize that we're human, that we are not perfect. And you shouldn't by any means continue to do your sin and fall into those things. I don't mean continue to go. I mean, learn that you fell and you are in shame, but you are not your shame. You're not the byproduct of the shame. You are the byproduct of grace. And everything else that flows from that comes what you come back to. Whether you stay in your shame and say, this is who I am, or you choose to walk away from it and say, that's not who I am. This is who I am now. I'm allowed to be different and change every single day. You're not your byproduct of your failings and shortcomings. It's okay to forgive yourself. And it's okay to move forward. And it's okay to not go back to the things, to the places, to the people that have made you feel shameful. You're deserving of so much. And until you believe that, until you start giving it to you, you allow people to dictate how that looks. You allow people to offer you less because you just want to be around. You allow people to make you feel like you are useless or shameful or bad just because it's convenient to them and their own narcissism, their own egotistic self. Thank you for being on this episode. Thank you for listening this far. Thank you just for your presence. I just can never be more grateful for people that actually listen to this. I'm so grateful for the messages. Like, I'm so grateful for people that share, like, on social media and stuff like that, because you don't understand the magnitude of that little thing that you did has an impact for me. I get to do this. I get to share my heart, share my mind, share my stories with people because there are people like you who support. So the whole thing, like and download and all that awesome stuff and 5 stars and all that stuff. It's great. But it's even more important to me that you're here. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.